The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Thursday. It's November 8th. So excited to be here with you guys today. We've got a lot we're going to cover. And, you know, I always say that this is meant to be a conversation between the two of us. And I count on you guys. I want to be here for you guys. And I know that you guys are there for me. And I have things that I'm going to ask you a little bit later on because I need some advice. Had a lot going on this morning already, and I need some advice. I feel like I've slipped into a parallel universe. But we'll talk about all of that in a little while. We are here primarily to talk about autism and how you and I can be more effective, more efficient working with our children on the autism spectrum, because whether you're a parent, teacher, or practitioner, if you're here with us, I know that you have a passion for this, that there is a young person in your life, whether it's a child or a teenager or an adult, that you want to help to reach their fullest potential. And I'm right there with you, that Vulcan mind meld going there. Because as you know, if you watch the show, I have a young man, I can't say a little boy anymore. I have a son who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, and he's now 9. And he is the light of my life. And I am so grateful and thankful for all the help and the support that we got, because we lived in a state and I met the right people who said, here's where you have to go and who you have to ask and what you have to do. So we were able to have a 40-hour program the first year when he was 3 in our home, and it was delivered by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And that year, while that wasn't the end of it, right? We did a total of 5. Yes, I said 5 years of intensive ABA in our home. Certainly not at the level of 40 hours a week the whole time. But that first year, it was miraculous. I do call it the autism miracle in my living room, because I went from having a nonverbal child to having a very verbal child who is now in completely included typical 4th grade, a math whiz. Whew, what this child is going to do. And I am 100% clear on the fact that I would not have had that had it not been for the treatment that my son had. And so this show, for me, is about making sure that as many of you get the answers that you need, whatever they are, whatever the questions are, whatever the information is that you need. My job to be your go-between. I'm not an expert, so not an expert in autism, so not an expert in early childhood development, so not an expert in the law, but I have the passion, and I know how important it is for you to get the answers that you want. So please take advantage of that. We want you to interact in whatever way is appropriate for you. Emily's going to start to put some different places that you can get a hold of us, where you can watch the show, where you can write to us, ways that you can get in touch with us, while I tell you that you can watch us live on autism-live.com. That's the place right now to see us live, although there's some new places coming around down the corner, some very exciting places I can't wait to tell you about. But autism-live.com is where you can find us live. I have hit the live button already this morning, so you can be writing in. The last comment that we got yesterday was somebody asked if we could please possibly translate the show into Portuguese. And I have to tell you, you know, it's certainly on a list of things to do to put the show and the information in different languages. We aren't there yet, but I love, and we'll put that on the list, you know, and the more people who ask for things, the more attention that gets. So I want you to know that it was heard. And you guys can be writing in the kinds of things that you want. So many of you wrote in questions yesterday to our first live segment with Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet was here, and you guys overwhelmingly wrote in comments, and I apologize to you that there was no way we could get to all of them. That's a quality problem, right? But I'm going to be picking some of them out potentially to talk with other guests, and we'll keep the questions and keep answering them because she's going to be with us live every week, Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet. So very exciting. All right, lots to cover today, and we like to start every morning with something that I fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. Boy, this is the time of day where we take on one word, one phrase, one anagram, and try to figure out just what those experts are talking about when they're using these terms in conjunction with our kids. I will tell you that in the beginning, I refused to participate in the jargon and said, you will need to speak to me in a way that makes sense to me. And I wasted a lot of time doing that. And I now see that it's so important to make friends with the jargon. You can't do it overnight, but what we do is take that one little increment of it a day and try to make sense of it, and it adds up over time so that you find yourself understanding what people are saying. And it really is so exciting when you understand what's being said and how it applies to your child. It's really life-changing. So we make friends with the jargon just the way we teach our kids, a little bit at a time. Our word for today is tact. And I loved, if you didn't get to see yesterday when Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet was talking about the different verbal operants, I would encourage you to go back and watch that because it was amazing, because she put it in terms of how it comes about in early childhood development. And tact was one of the things that she talked about. It's a really difficult thing to understand. It's a difficult thing to define because it's a little elusive. And we even have a video that hopefully we'll show a little bit later on about tacting. So what is it? Tact, we think of, you know, somebody being appropriate and saying something. And again, I need your advice later on because I need to find a way to tact the way that we normally talk about tact. I need to use tact to say something to somebody, and I don't know how to do it. But in this instance, tact means something entirely different, and it's really important for our children's developing language that we teach tacting, that we reinforce it, and that we know what in the hey nani nani is it? Here we go. Our actual definition is a verbal operant evoked by nonverbal discriminative stimulus and followed by generalized conditioned reinforcement. And this, my friends, is why we have to do the jargon of the day, because what does that mean? What on earth does that mean? Okay, let's look at our working definition. Spontaneously labeling or commenting about things that the child comes into contact with for the purpose of communication. When you're someplace with your child and your child points at something, you know, you're at the zoo and you're looking at the penguins and your child points at the penguins, that's a form of tacting. They're pointing it out to you. If they say penguins, that's a tact. Nobody said anything about penguins. They noticed it in the environment and they called attention to it. The thing that I always try to remember about tacting, because people will go, oh, well, it's labeling. But I can go and say cup, and I can say, you know, screen, I can say computer, I can say mouse, right? And I'm just labeling. The difference between labeling and tacting is that when I tact, when I truly tact, it's a kind of conversation, because I'm not just saying it for the purpose of labeling it, I'm saying it as a beginning of a conversation. It's as if in the parentheses, unspoken, I'm saying, look at that, that's an amazing penguin, right? And it's an invitation to discuss. Now, you know, sometimes it's an invitation to discuss with a total stranger. Sometimes it's an invitation to discuss with a child. Sometimes it's an invitation to discuss with a parent. Sometimes it's an invitation to discuss with ourselves, as strange as that may seem. Have you ever been someplace and you looked up and you say, oh my goodness, look at that, and there's no one to hear you, but it's so overwhelming that, you know, you're thinking it in your head and it's spoken out loud. It's still a tact. And it's so important that our children be able to tact. It's hard to teach though, right? Because how do you get the child to spontaneously, with no prompting, address things in the environment to call them out into your attention when they're not looking at you? When they're not involved with the environment, when they're focused on whatever they're focused on, and they're not looking you in the face. So we don't just give up on it. We teach tacting. And the way that we teach tacting is that for a while, we'll prompt about it. And we'll create crazy circumstances to get our children to tact about all kinds of things, objects and things in their senses as well. And it depends on what you're working on, how you go about it. But for instance, if we're teaching the color red and we've taught it, we've talked earlier this week about expressive and receptive, that we want the child to be able to understand receptively when we say red. We want them to be able to communicate red, either with vocal speech or by pointing, to red when they're trying to tell us that something is red. But when we get them to tact, it may be that we take something that they just love. If they love balloons and we go and get a red balloon and we don't say anything to the child, but we have somebody else, a helium-filled red balloon, put the red balloon into the room with no discussion about it and see if the child will notice it and hopefully say red. Now, we might have, before that, set up a circumstance where something else was red and we said, say red when you point at it. And that's called an impure tact because we prompted it and we helped them to get to it. We're sort of greasing the skids there, so to speak. But eventually we want the child to spontaneously label or comment about things that they come into contact for the purpose of communication. Tacting. I always like to tell the story about when I was pregnant and my son was in our belly and my husband and I were coming over a hill and there was a big furniture store doing a big sale and they had all these balloons out and I said, it's not going to be long, and from the back seat we'll hear a little voice that says balloons, right? And that isn't what happened. That isn't what happened. And that was hard. But guess what? He does now. He does now. You can help your child with functional communication to be able to say their needs and get to tacting, but it takes some work. Add some thinking outside of the box, but tacting is important. We want to make sure that we teach about that. And again, I urge you to listen to Dr. Doreen Grepche explain it too, because it was really amazing. All right, we also always have a question of the day for you, and today's question for you, we've been talking about a lot of different things this week having to do with social skills, and today's question is, who does your child enjoy interacting with? We see sometimes, especially early on, that a child will have a rapport with someone that we can't put our finger on why, right? But there are just some people that our kids find so reinforcing for some reason that some of their barriers to their social communication and their social skills either lessen or slip away. I remember right around the time my child was being diagnosed and we saw the eye contact go, it just went away with like the wind. And yet a really good friend of mine came to visit and she brought her 3 children and we were so excited. She had 2 older girls, but her son is literally 1 month and 1 day younger than my son. And we were so excited to get these 2 little boys together because we thought, they're just going to get along so well and everything's going to be happy because we get along so well. And she lives in another state and they came to visit and I was so excited. And my child was descending into autism and I don't think they were there for a week and a half. I don't think my son even noticed her son at all. But her middle daughter, I don't know what it was, but he was fascinated with her. I think he thought she was a doll, to be honest with you, because beautiful porcelain skin. She was probably maybe 5 at the time with strawberry blonde hair that came down past her bottom and, dressed, so prettily always. And she had just the biggest blue eyes. And he would walk up to her and he would make eye contact with her. I'm not kidding you, for sometimes 10, 15 minutes at a time, where he would just stare at her and she would stare at him. And then every once in a while, he would reach up and poke her in the eye. I know that's a terrible thing, but that's why I think that he thought she was a doll. I think he was trying to see if she was alive, because she would sit very still and just stare back at him. And I think he was checking to see if she was alive. And of course, we would be like, no, don't poke her in the eye. But they just had something, the two of them, that was unique and individual, and he has not seen her since then. And I keep saying, I want for them to get together. I want to see how they would interact now. I just think it would be really interesting. But our kids have a relationship with somebody where they'll make eye contact with one person, or they'll play with one person, or they'll make noises for another person. And sometimes it's not a person, sometimes it's an animal. Sometimes we see our kids will overcome what they're limited by for a dog or a cat or a turtle. So I really want to know from you guys, who does your child enjoy interacting with? It's one of those days to feel free, name names, and give praise for whatever it is that your child has a way of connecting. I also always talk about Peter Farrig, who, I call the Autism Whisperer, the first therapist that ever came to our door. And he has a way with my child. I don't know what it is. He just does. And my child will, do whatever, overcome whatever for Peter, to communicate with Peter. And I've also, quite honestly, I'll say this, my son has had a couple of occasions in recent years, to work with Dr. Doreen Grandpichet, and it is amazing to watch her work with kids, because I think she has that with all of them, that there's just something about her. It's just amazing. And the kids pop out of their shells for her. It's really phenomenal. But I want to know, who do you know that your child really enjoys interacting with? Okay, that's our question of the day. We always have a topic of the week, and our topic all this week, no surprise to anybody, has been social skills. This is an area where we know our kids are affected, right? Whatever their diagnosis is, if it's something on the autism spectrum, we know there's a deficit somewhere in the social skills area. And depending on what the diagnosis is, it could be something relatively small, or it could be something significant that's holding our kids back from a richer life. The good news is that we can work on these things, and we do work on these things. So we're going to be talking about that a lot today. A lot that we're going to cover today. We got a healthy eating tip for you. We're going to be talking about social skills, and in particular, we're going to be talking with BCBA Angela Persicke at the top of the next hour. After we do the A word, she'll be here with us, talking about some individual social skills. So we'll look forward to that. We're also going to be taking your questions and comments and looking at your answers to the question of the day, and we have an A word for you. So all of that and more, but when we come back, I'm going to tell you what my conundrum is this morning. You're just not even going to believe it. I have no idea. And I'm asking for your advice. So stick with us through these messages, and we'll be right back.
My name is Rocky.
Autism used to affect 1 in every 10,000 children. Now it affects 1 in every 91 kids.
TACA is one of 5 organizations helping families living with autism today.
Our kids came back to life. There's a whole community out there, and now we're a part of it.
Oh, TACA has a place for me.
To find TACA, go to www.tacanow.org.
Please.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Every once in a while, I share a little about, we call it a week in the life of a crazy autism mom, because sometimes that's what my life feels like. And this week has been nothing if not crazy. And you know how sometimes when you got real stuff going on, it's just the little pukey, weird, stupid stuff that trips you up? This is my life. And I have to share with you guys, and I know I'll mention it later on in the show, that this is going to be our last live show until the week of Thanksgiving. My mom is having some health issues, and I need to go and be with her. And so I'm going to be leaving in the morning. It's unexpected, and I appreciate all of your comments and your prayers, but I'm going to go. I need to go be with my mom, so I'm going to go be with my mom, and I'm taking my child. So that's a whole other kettle of fish, right? But in any case, I'm in that space, and it's so much easier for me when stuff is going on to focus on like the little pukey stupid stuff. And I like to, in the morning, I wake up quite early, and I will very frequently reach for my phone that I refer to not as a smartphone, my phone that is smarter than me, that I don't completely yet know how to work. But I find it, you know, I need a couple of minutes in the morning to wake up, and so I should be meditating during that time, and I think I'm going to go back to meditating. But what I will often do is scroll through on Facebook and see what's going on and see what you guys are posting and what's happening in the news and what's happening with our kids. And I find that it's a way to get my head, you know, give me a minute and get my head wrapped around some stuff. And of course, it's been really crazy on Facebook the last couple of days, right? And people have been writing a whole lot of stuff. And I'm somebody who firmly, I love that people have opinions, and I love that we live in a place where people are allowed to have opinions, and I, you know, I've got a pretty thick skin for that, and have opinions, and I believe in the whole thing of extinction. And so when somebody states an opinion, first of all, if somebody states an opinion that I don't agree with, they're entitled to it, and I don't need to say anything about that. They're entitled to it, and then there are sometimes when people say things and it's just sort of incendiary, and I just, you know, I go, okay, well, whatever. I'm not going to give that any gas. Heaven knows I've got enough other things to do. And then I was on Facebook this morning, and I think just because I'm a little oversensitive because of everything else going on, and somebody wrote something that was just so clearly hate-filled, horrible, unnecessary, just, you know, and I looked at it and I thought, I don't need this in my life. I really don't need this in my life. And this person writes things on a regular basis that are like this, and I don't have to make a big thing about it. They're entitled to say what they want, but I don't have to put it in my life. So I'm going to make the choice that I almost never make, and I'm going to very quietly unfriend this person. I don't need to have a discussion with them about it. I'm just going to unfriend them. They'll never know, and I just don't need this kind of negativity in my life. You know, we talk about this on the show. There's sometimes you just got to let go of some people and say, you know, may the force be with you, but I can't right now. I got other things I got to do. So I was all happy with that decision, and I went in, and I'm on my phone that I don't know how to work, and I'm not all the way awake, and I don't have all of my physical skills with me. I got the physical dexterity on a good day with my phone of, a baby chimpanzee. I should not be left to deal with my phone. And so I'm pushing buttons, and it takes me to the full comment, which I did not mean to do. I was trying to go in and unfriend the person. It takes me to the full comment, and now I'm like, 2 people have actually liked this comment? 2 people actually liked, now I'm mad. Because I'm not all the way awake. And so now I'm trying to push the button to see who else liked this comment. Who in their right mind, because I'm going to unfriend them too. Now I'm on a tear, right? And so in my quest to push the button to find out who liked it, which I don't really know how to do on my phone, it now says you and 2 people like this comment. Now I'm freaking out because I'm going, no, this is the comment that I wanted to expunge from my life, and now I've liked it, and now I'm so upset. My blood pressure is up. I am now standing on the bed, yelling at my phone, yelling not nice things at my phone, threatening it, saying I'm going to flush you down the toilet if you do not stop. What did you do? And I'm pushing all kinds of buttons trying to figure out. I completely freaked out. I had figured out, I'm fairly sure that I figured out how to unlike the comment. And then I found a different way and went back in and said, okay, now I'm going to very quietly defriend that person. And for the good of all, I'm going to let go of those other 2 people. Perhaps they had an early morning smartphone accident too. I'm going to let go of it, right? I'm going to just let that be and just defriend this person and continue on with my day. Okay, flash forward about an hour, and I'm stuck in horrible traffic, not moving at all because it was raining this morning here in LA. And something happened with my phone and it buzzed, and I went to look to see, whether it was somebody calling me because I'm concerned about, what's happening with my mom. And I see that I have not defriended the person, and they have now posted to my comment and said, "This is horrible." What did they say? And a bunch of other stuff. And so now I'm in the car and I'm thinking to myself, all right, what do I need to do about that? Because, do I now quietly go in and defriend the person? Or do I message them on the side and say, you know what? Bless you, and I mean nothing personal, but I cannot take your constant negativity at the level of hate, because I said hate-mongering and ignorant, because it was. And so now I don't know what to do. And I need a little Facebook advice from my friends, and I'm not entirely sure. And I'll be honest with you, that this individual who is somebody that, was from my life a long, long time ago, that I don't know the person really well, but I had an opportunity to see them a couple of years ago. I suspect that there's some other issues there for the kinds of things that are posted. You know what I mean? And so I don't know what will be useful and productive for this person, or whether I should just do what the original intent was and quietly defriend. So I'd love your advice. Okay, and we have some comments from you guys about other stuff. But if somebody is good with Facebook, this is a social skill, right? We talk about, what it's like for our kids in this world that they're coming into with all of the text messaging and the tweeting and the Facebook. And I am I don't know what the rules are for this. I don't want to publicly embarrass the person. But I fear that I may have already publicly embarrassed myself. But I know you guys have advice. So write in and tell that. We're going to take a break and come back and deal with this question that somebody wrote in. So stick with us. Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Teacher has some glasses.
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We got a great question that came in. I love this question. Okay, here it is. It should be on your screen right now. I can't help but notice how often you talk about how vital it is for autistic children to learn social skills and make friends. I am an autistic adult and have never had the desire for friendship. I was and am just too much into my obsessions, special interests, and anything that pulled me away from them wasn't enjoyable for me. I can't help wonder, what is your advice for autistic children who express that they don't want friends? Love this question and love that you wrote in, because this is kind of input that, you know, as a parent, anytime I get a chance to talk to an individual on the autism spectrum who is a teenager or an adult, I'm borderline obnoxious, because I want to know what your world is like and what it's like for you, because I want a better understanding for my child. Here is my feeling on the subject, and tell me what you think about this. For me, it comes down to choices in life, that we all have choices, and we all have things that we like, and we all have things that we don't like. And I think that by the time you're an adult, primarily, you know the kinds of things that you like and the kinds of things that you don't like. Some people are all about expanding. It's reinforcing for them when they expand their boundaries and try new things, and other people, it's not. And while we could work on that with an adult, the truth is that sometimes you just have preferences, right? There are things that you like and things that you don't like. I personally feel, though, that there are some times that there's a difference between it being able and choosing something and not being able and being forced into a choice, right? And I think for any parent of any child, you want for your child to be able to pick and choose what they like from a wide variety and not have it be limited. We know that for kids on the autism spectrum, that there are all kinds of things that they don't find reinforcing, that they just don't, just not exciting to them. And we've talked about before on the show, like, I don't like Angry Birds. I love to play computer games, but I don't like Angry Birds. It feels like work to me. I know that, and there are people who tell me it's so much fun, and that if I did it in certain circumstances, yeah, it might be fun for me. I don't think so. Plus, which I don't care about Angry Birds, and I don't really need Angry Birds, so I make the choice, I'm not going to work on that, right? But there are other things that I don't find reinforcing that I am trying to make reinforcing for myself, like exercise. Right? Because it's important for me and for my health and for me being around for a long time, and I want to be around for a long time. I look at kids on the autism spectrum, and we know that play isn't reinforcing for them in the beginning. It doesn't make sense to them. It's not interesting to them. But we also know that if we use the tools of ABA, that we can pair things together with play, and the kids then start to like it. And it's not that it's a false like, they actually start to like it. The first time time that I put Legos in front of my child, he didn't know what they were, showed no interest in them whatsoever, didn't want to put them together, was not fascinated. My child is passionate about Legos now. And I think about, what if I had said as a child, well, he doesn't like it, so therefore we're not going to do it. He would have missed out on one of the great passions of his life. I know that a lot of kids on the autism spectrum aren't interested in making friends. Or at least that is what they convey through their actions and through, for some of them, their words. But my question is it that they really don't want to make friends, or is it that it's uncomfortable for them and that they don't know how to do it, and that when they try to do it, when they're forced to do it, there are things about it that are uncomfortable and really aversive for them? So, you know, that's a lot to kind of sort through and think about. But when in the past, when we have seen kids who didn't show an interest in making friends, and then they're given skills so that they can make friends and they learn how enjoyable it is, they go on to be lifelong social people who describe it as something that's really enjoyable to them. We had Travis Breeding on the show last week, and he has talked about how, and he's got a book out about living in between these two worlds, and this sort of fantasy world where he's into all of his things, and then this other world that he kind of dips into from time to time. And one of the things that he shared with us was that he had never had a friend until recently, a true friend, that he didn't know what he had been missing. And so it wasn't something that was deeply concerning to him. And then when he had a true friend and he saw how great it was, that it has made him look at things in a different way. And now he sees what a joy and how important and how enriching and how it changes everything. I mean, imagine the things that you describe as your special interests, the things that you're obsessed with, that you get really excited about. And what would it be like if you could be really excited about that with somebody else who is really excited about it too? You know, it's one of those things. How do you describe a color if somebody's never seen it before? And so, you know, I appreciate that you have other things that you'd like to do, but I wonder if you had somebody to do it with and that was really enjoyable to you, if you would hold to that opinion. And as a parent of a child on the autism spectrum, I think that when things are tough for our kids and they express, I don't want to do it, that we still have a responsibility to help them to be able to learn how to do it so that it isn't something that's a deficit. Ultimately, if they choose not to do it, it's a choice, that they have the skills to do it. It's not really all that much different than if I take my child bowling, say, and I show my child how to bowl, and eventually my child says, you know what, I know how to bowl, I just really don't like it. And then I can accept that. So I think it's important. I think it's really important for us to teach our kids social skills, and then let them grow up to be who they are. And not everybody is going to be a social butterfly, and that's okay. And my child happens to be a social butterfly, but I can tell you, if we had worked on that and I knew that he could do it, that he could make friends if he wanted to, and he knew how to reach out, but that he ultimately said, it just isn't something that interests me, I would have a peaceful heart about that. But when my child was little, it wasn't. And even now, I have to be honest, that recently he had a meltdown because we were someplace and he wanted to play with the other boys who were there, and they weren't. He's at that funny age where they've moved on and he hasn't quite moved on, and he laid there and he cried and he said, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I said, honey, what is it you don't know what to do? And he said, I don't know what to do to get them to play with me. So as a mom, you know, I want to work to take away those obstacles from my child. And ultimately, if he decides, I don't want to do that, that's okay. But I don't want him to not be able to. And I'm guessing, because of how eloquently you put your question, that you have the skills that you could make a friend if you wanted to, and that you choose not to, and I wholeheartedly think that that's appropriate. But for a lot of our kids, they don't have the skills. And I'm all about giving them the skills and then later letting them make the choices. Let me know what you think about that. I'd love to know your opinion. It matters to me greatly. Okay, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we have our academic tip of the week, teaching shapes. Stick with us.
I'm Bryce Myler, and I'm the Contracts Director for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I've been here for about 5 years. CARD has several employees with many years of insurance experience, dealing with insurance, dealing with pre-authorizations, dealing with discovering whether there's coverage or not. So we have more experience than any ABA provider that I've ever come across. So for a prospective client, somebody that may be interested in, ABA therapy and what CARD has to offer, we have a special 800 number, and you call that number. They will talk to you about what we have to offer, how ABA works. He'll ask you for the front and back of your ID card, and then we check to see if you do or do not have coverage. If you have coverage for ABA therapy, we try to do whatever we can to set it up where we can bill for you and you don't have to fight with the insurance company every month to get your claims paid. For California residents, we recently did a series of insurance trainings all over the state, and you can click on the link below to watch pretty much the full presentation. It has a lot of information, how you can get your insurance company to comply with what they're supposed to do, understanding the networks, and many other valuable pieces of information.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I want to let you know our fabulous technical director, Emily Goodwin, was just telling me that she has posted that Ask Dr. Doreen segment that we did live yesterday with a lot of your questions. And I don't know, I don't understand technology, but I don't know how she did it, but you can, it's all encoded so that you can go to the question and it will fast forward to that question and that answer. Is that not awesome? So that is up on our YouTube page. Did we also put it on the Facebook page, Emily? Yar, it is there. Okay, so, and thank you. Somebody wrote in and said, you're in my prayer, Shannon. Thank you. I need it this week. Yeah, I need it this week. So thank you so very much. But definitely check out that Ask Dr. Doreen. And I'm going to let you guys know I'm not here next week, but we will still be doing Ask Dr. Doreen. So make sure you tune in on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Okay, it is time for our academic tip of the week, and we're talking about shapes. How do we teach shapes? And there is a progression in a lot of the lessons that we teach that we can kind of look at and engage and say, okay, sometimes we can start it, because the child has already progressed past a certain point, but there is a progression in terms of teaching something. And we talk about this in a lot of different instances. So let's talk about it in terms of shapes. The course of the lessons that you teach, because you want to teach shapes, and you want to do it in a way that the child can understand in multiple different situations, right? We want them to completely generalize shapes in all the different ways that there are. So, one of the earliest skills if our child does not know shapes at all that we're going to start with is matching. Why do we start with matching? Because it doesn't matter how much language you have. It is a very visual thing that a lot of our kids respond to. And again, you don't have to have the receptive language or the expressive language, and it builds understanding. And we can do this really errorlessly so that the child begins to get a grasp on shapes. So, it could be as simple as in the beginning, you've got two cards and one of them, they each have a circle on them. You put one of them on the table. There's nothing else to choose from. And you hand the child the other one and you say, circle, put with same. And they look at the shape. There's nothing else on the table, right? We may even have to physically prompt them. They put it with same and we go, good job. It's a circle. It's a circle. Fabulous. And we reinforce them. So not only are we matching, but we're beginning to work on receptive. because we're labeling it for them and they're getting to hear it over and over and over again. Okay, so we start with the matching and then we go into sorting. So we've got a couple of different shapes here. I've got squares and I've got triangles and I've got circles, and I say, you know, I mix them all up and I say, you know, put with same. So they put a pile with all the squares. I go, good, those are all the squares. And they put all the circles. Good, those are all circles. Good, these are all triangles. And, you know, of course, we wouldn't necessarily be teaching them all at the same time. It could be that they're all different types of circles, you know, different things for different children. It depends on how fast the child progresses, whether you would add in the other things. Then we go on to receptive, where we sit there and say, give me the circle. Ah, okay, now they got to put it together. Give me the circle, boom, and they give us the circle. Again, we can prompt them through it to begin with, but the child is starting to hear circle, see shape, and put these two things together. We're making inroads, just like the Grand Canyon, right? Drip at a time. Then we move into expressive, and by the way, I can work on these two things at the same time. I can say, give me the circle. The child gives me the circle, and I hold it up and say, what is it? And I prompt the child, and the child says it's a circle. So now I've worked on it receptively and expressively. Then we get into manding, where the child then will ask, and I got to set up circumstances so the child will ask for the circle. Maybe the child loves brownies, and I cut one of them in the shape of a triangle, one of them in the shape of a circle, and one of them in the shape of a rectangle, and I say, which one do you want? And I want the child to say, the circle. Yay, you get the circle. And maybe only the brownie is in the shape of the circle, and I put two other foods that they don't like as much, you know, that are in shapes. Which one do you want? The circle. Yeah, the brownie's a circle. You get, and I give it to them. That's the reinforcement. Then we move into tacting. Our word for the day. How do we get a child to tact about a shape? Whew. Going to be hard, right? But if we keep labeling and we go around the room and we say, let's find all the circles, right? They do this on the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. When they'll show a scene and Mickey and Goofy are there and they'll say, let's find all the triangles. And they go around the room and find all the triangles on the screen. There are apps for this, but you can do it in your house. Walk around your house and say, let's find all the circles in the house. And then you point your modeling and say, look, the clock has a circle. It's a circle. That's great. And so you're modeling the behavior. And if we continue to do this and say to the child, point to a circle, it's an impure tact, but eventually we will get to the point where the child does it on their own. You can walk the child down the street and say, let's look for all of the circles. Look, there's a wheel. It's a circle. You know, we're tacting. And then eventually we're going to move into interverbals, where I'm going to ask the child the question, what shape is the sun? And the child is going to say to me, it's a circle. And when we get all of these things in there, then the child really has an understanding of individual shapes. So we're going to work through that progression. I think I've got another slide here. Okay, so and here's the example in skills. I love skills, and you can go to skills, get a free trial to see these kinds of lessons for yourself. The child, so this is for matching sorting. And I mentioned this last week, that instead of just I've put the SD on here now because we need to get used to using that term. The discriminative stimulus, what it is we do. The parent or teacher presents a black triangle, a square card, a circle card, and hands the child a black circle card and says, put with same. The child matches the sample black circle card to the comparison black circle card in the field. Okay, very easy to do, and I think we have a video of that, don't we, Emily?
Put with same. Wow.
There you have it. So it's not that difficult. I'm messing up with my slides here. Not that difficult. We have another video also of shapes with a slightly different SD. Let's take a look.
Give me square. Thank you.
So there we're working on the receptive. Give me the square, and the child is, and there's a field of 3. We can do this with a field of 1 first. And, you know, all of our kids are going to work in different paces, but usually when we start out, we make sure that the child's going to be successful. And remember that in all of these things, it seems like such a tiny little moment, but these tiny little moments get sewn together and become huge understanding for our kids. Really quite amazing how it all works? Again, you can find these lessons and thousands of other lessons of this sort on Skills, and you can get a free trial, go through. I love Skills. You guys know that. I talk about it all the time because I do. I use this at home. And by the way, it's the same exact lessons, it's the same exact curriculum that was used with my son, with all the therapists that came to our house as well. So I love it. Absolutely love it. And I hope you'll check it out. Okay, that's sorting, or shapes. I don't know whether I'm coming or going today. In any case, let's take a break, and we are going to come back with a very quick shopping tip, so stick with us.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet is
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet is a visionary in the field of autism, and now you get to ask her questions every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome back. I kind of love the Ask Dr. Doreen music. It's very catchy. Okay, it is also time for our adaptive tip of the week. It's a little shopping tip because, and I included that this week because shopping is a social activity. And a lot of times when our kids are little on the autism spectrum, we isolate. And sometimes it's because we're home and we're working on things and we got therapists coming to the door and we're trying to keep to a schedule and keep a roof over our heads. Other times it's because it's just hard being out with our kids, right? There's all the challenging behavior that comes. There's all the people who look and say and do things that are just not helpful. It can be really difficult. And one of the things that was really eye-opening for me once we started intensive ABA, because by that point, I was close to being a shut-in. I wasn't seeing my friends as much. I wouldn't have labeled it that at the time, but my kid had a couple of meltdowns around other kids or at the park or at a birthday party or whatever, and I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to see the looks on their faces. I didn't want to go through the feelings of it. It didn't seem like he benefited from it. So in a large respect, I had just said, enough. I can't deal. And then the therapist came into our house and said, oh, no, we're not doing that. This child needs to go out into the world and he needs to be able to function in the world or we haven't done our jobs right. And they would ask for outings and play dates and things. And in the beginning, I had all this pressure about, I got to create all these things for him to do and go. And, it's so hard. And then at one point they said to me, well, what kind of behavior does he engage in the grocery store? And I was saying, I'm going to the grocery store at 2 o'clock in the morning by myself. I can't take him to the grocery store. And it was, okay, well, we're not going to do that anymore. Or at least, not on a regular basis. A couple of times you will have to, but, we don't want it to be that you have to. So they began to work on both my son and I, where we would go to the store, and they worked on a whole set of skills. And I can tell you that over the years, the skills changed. In the beginning, it was how to sit quietly in the cart and not reach and pull things off the shelf, or try to tip the cart over, or try to escape from the cart. Very quickly, it became him walking alongside, and they really taught him and reinforced him to put his hand up on the cart and walk with me and not let go of the cart unless he had asked for it. Now, in the beginning, he didn't have the verbal capacity to do that, right? But we still worked towards it because the day came when he could. The day came when he said, Mom, can I go over there and look at that toy? Yes, you can go over and look at that toy, and I will come with you. Now he'll say, Mom, can I go over to this section and look at this? And I can be like right next to him, but not, you know what I mean? Like I can be 10 feet away and he's going and looking at something and comes back and talks to me about it. And who knew that could happen? I mean, seriously. you know, there's a whole set of lessons that have to do with shopping. And, you know, at the end of the 5 years that he had ABA, it was comparison shopping that they would take him and he would have to look at the price and find the price and look at 2 different items and decide, you know, well, which one is worth more money and how do you look at the label and decide, well, this is probably more because it's a name brand and is it worth it to pay? Oh, my goodness, you know, like amazing stuff. But, you know, where do we start and where do we finish? There are all kinds of things, but shopping is, it's an adaptive skill because it's something that when somebody can do, they can help to take care of themselves or take care of themselves. But I consider it a social skill too. I'm a woman. So I'm entitled to think of it as a social skill. But truly, because my son enjoys shopping now, didn't before, but enjoys shopping and looking at things because of all these lessons, it really is a social time for us. He talks to the people who work in the store, and he talks to the people who are looking at things, and it's very much a social time for us. So there are some things that, that we can keep in mind. In the lesson that I picked, it was about being able to put things into the cart. Being able to put things into the cart. And we break it down into a couple of different lessons, putting unbreakables into the cart and putting breakables into the cart. And, you know, my son has this lesson. I would tell you that if we put it in IEP goal parlance, he has it 4 out of 5 times. You know, there's still that, like, that 5th time where occasionally he's not thinking about, you know, that he just put the apple juice in the plastic container in the cart and threw it on top of the bread. You know, but he's 9, so you know, I don't know how inappropriate that is age-wise, because if you ask him and say, hey, if you put that on top of the bread, is it going to smush it? Yes, but in the moment he might have been thinking about something else and didn't realize that it was going to smush it. So, so we can work on that, about how do you put an unbreakable into the shopping cart and how do you put a breakable in and what manner in which you do that. Getting breakables and unbreakables off of the shelf. Even with little kids, we can be talking about the money concepts and the comparison shopping, and making them aware that, you know, different brands, different prices, that kind of thing. And so I believe I've got a lesson in here. Okay, so for the putting things in the cart, for our SD, the parent teacher hands the child a loaf of bread and says, put the bread in the cart, and the child places the loaf of bread in the cart. And we can be prompting them and say, you know, be gentle, because if we smush the bread and talk about consequences and all that, if it's appropriate. If it isn't appropriate, we don't, you know, we don't need to do it all in one moment, is what I'm trying to say. For my child, my husband still eats regular bread. You know, my son and I are gluten-free, but my husband is not, right? So there are some stores that we go to that will put an actual loaf of bread in, and it took a while for my son to realize, because when we get his loaf of bread, it's a very special loaf of bread, and it's frozen. It has to be purchased frozen, because it has to be shipped in. And so, you know, he thinks of bread as being a brick. And we really didn't think about that why would he automatically know that Dad's bread is not a brick? He didn't come out of the womb knowing that. He needed to be taught that. And he's pretty good about that now. And then eventually we can teach our children to put other things into the cart, and to have an awareness of these. But it grows. It's a lesson that grows. You don't have a child who's too young to start working on some concept with shopping. And you don't have a child who's too old to work on some concept of shopping. And when we do get these things, I will tell you, one of my favorite things in the world is to go shopping with my son now. It is not one of his favorite things to go shopping with me, just keeping it real here, but I love to go shopping with him. We have the best conversations and talk about all kinds of, because stuff comes up when you're shopping, about preferences and how people think and what they think about and what's important to them and choices and all kinds of things. It can be a really wonderful experience, but it takes a while. And I encourage you to put the time in and begin working on shopping skills. Again, a whole set of lessons on the skills program. I hope you'll check it out. It is time for the A word. This is the wonderful documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. I can tell you that in real time, Jack Riley is about to turn 4, but we've gone back to the beginning of this series, and we're watching when he's about 10 weeks into therapy, and they're beginning to take on his aversion to food and figure out ways in which they can reinforce him enough so that he will actually feed himself. It's that thing of stringing the beads together, putting in the time, skill by skill, taking it slowly, but making progress, because progress is the name of the game. So here it is, the A word.
What are you doing? He knows more about this than I do. It scares me. We're watching Happy Feet right now, and it has helped us in his feeding. As per a suggestion, we stop it and make it fun for him to take his next bite.
Take a bite. Take a bite.
Not only did he feed himself his applesauce and laugh the whole time, he fed himself 6 or 8 bites of soup, which he's never done. He's done that 2 meals in a row. So looking forward to today. We're hoping that we've made a positive change in his eating, but we will try it at approximately 12:30, I guess. We will do the same thing. I'll give him some soup and some yogurt with a banana chopped inside. And I will try to get him to watch this and sort of feed himself. Right, bud? Come in! Hi. Where are you?
Oh, hi. Hi, Jack Riley. I'm my friend. Do you remember her?
Miriam is a new therapist working with Jack Riley. Today, she's shadowing Jessica to observe and learn from her.
So right now I'm just going to probe to see what he knows, so I can find a new target for him. What is it? No, try again. What is it? What is it?
I think he's saying
Airplane. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. What is it? No, what is it? Hey, you need to do work first and then you get the toy, okay? What is it? No, you need to look better. That's a visual. You need to look better, buddy. Nope, try again. What is it? Oh, do you want your toy? Toy? Okay, well what is it? Okay, thank you. What is this one? Snake. Good. What's this one? Door. Okay. What's this one? Whoa, hippo. That's so good. Hippo. I think we're gonna do chicken. And then we're gonna be moving into matching soon, where we're gonna match 2D pictures to 3D objects that we have to have momentarily stimuli. So we're just gonna use like objects that are around his house, so that we have the object that we can match it to, so it's a lot easier. And then after he gets the identical, then we're gonna move into similars. So like different colored balls or different cars. Alright, bud, you ready? Okay. You ready? Ready? Give me 5. I got you. Oh, you're so easy to tickle. Hi. Give me 5. I got you again. You're so easy. Give me 5. I got you again. You're easy to tickle. Okay, one more time. I got you. Where's the tickle spot? It's right here. Okay. What is it? Say chicken. Chicken. Good. What is it? Chicken. Say chicken. Good. What is it? Chicken. Chicken. Good. Sit up though. What is it? Chicken. Chicken. Very good. All right. Here you go, kiddo.
watermelon. Watermelon. Pineapple. 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 Watermelon. Watermelon. Super cool.
Cool. I know. We're going to do feeding now.
That's the one that's different.
Shireen was here, so I just gave him pancakes.
Okay. And Happy Feast was reinforcing for him. All done. Well, you know, we didn't even start yet, you know.
How can you be all done, dog? We're gonna eat, right? Remember?
I'm gonna try doing it for
Okay.
now. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Just to see.
So here's the
play.
pause in there. You can just hit the pause again and
Right,
play.
okay. So we're gonna take a bite. And then we get the movie. Take a bite and then you can have the movie.
2, 1, 2, 1. If you want me to try it, ordinarily he would have applesauce right now. He'll feed himself.
He'll feed himself with that better than this?
Yes.
Has he fed himself yogurt?
He hasn't yet.
Okay.
We've done applesauce and then soup, and he started on the soup. He did a few bites on the soup after finishing the applesauce.
Okay. Maybe
Whatever you think.
applesauce would be better
Okay.
for today? Because it's preferred, right? Versus
Yeah,
yogurt.
it's just it's something he's always fed himself.
You wanna try it?
After 10 weeks of ABA therapy, Jack Riley's therapists are now working on feeding. They waited to work on this skill until they worked on compliance with him, since feeding is such a huge behavioral problem. They wanted to make sure that Jack Riley would listen to them before they started working on this. In order for Jack Riley to watch the movie, he must feed himself a bite. And since it's such a preferred item, they are hoping it will motivate him to eat. This is new for Jack Riley. So therefore, the tantrums are going to be much bigger because he's not used to this.
That's good. Nice job. You did it. There you go. Nice job. There you go. Alright, let's take another bite. One more bite. Wow, very good. There you go. Okay, take another bite. People. Yeah. Is Mambo there? Take another bite. Yeah. Awesome. Let me see. Oh, all right. That's good. So when he does that, what happened earlier? It's really upset.
In the chair?
Yeah. And he'll just step in and
Walk away.
just walk away. Good, eating. So yeah, just don't even say anything. And you know, when he's doing his thing, you can just present it again. Still swatting away. That's okay, just walk away.
Okay.
Because even part of it could be, the reaction.
Attention.
Yeah, the attention that he's looking for. And if you just kind of walk away, then he doesn't get any of that.
Right.
So hopefully that'll subside, and that's what it is. But we'll see. What works, what doesn't work.
Well, we had a great dinner last night with him because Cheryl does this dancing, but she's goofier than I am. But and he just cracks up and eats, and she kept turning it off, but she made it kind of a game.
All right, you want some more Mambo? You want some more movie? Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, happy feet. You give me a high five for eating all your applesauce. High five, you're leaving me hanging.
Jessica is giving Jack Riley verbal praise for finishing his applesauce because it motivates him. Feeding is a new skill for him, so each small step he makes is met with large enthusiasm. The hope is that the excitement that he sees from his parents and therapists will motivate him to do it again.
Right here. Ah, you got me. Want some more movie? Yeah? Okay. Here you go.
Jack Riley continues to tantrum, refusing to eat his lentil soup for about 15 minutes. All he's had to eat so far for lunch is applesauce.
Jack, want a cracker? Get something more in you, okay?
You can take over.
Okay. Alrighty.
I
Okay,
just wanted
Brian.
to see if he would feed himself the soup, but that's okay. We can do that another day.
He might just be mad now.
Yeah.
You want to just take a bite? One bite. Then we'll watch this. You kidding me? Ding, 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 ding. Take a bite. Take a bite. Take a bite. I know. You have to earn it, though, huh? Life gets tough. That's how you get paychecks. You earn it. Right?
Whoa.
Whoa. Whoa.
When did you notice that he had a hard time eating? Like, it's always been like this ever since?
No, this is extreme. He's very finicky. There's certain things that we have no problem with. Usually applesauce for quite a while he would eat on his own. Then he stopped, and we've just gotten him back to doing it again. Obviously pancakes he devours in the morning on his own. We just tear him up and he eats them by himself. But new foods and just if he's not in the mood. I feed him probably most of his lunches because I'm home during the day more often than Cheryl is. And she's more apt to feed him dinner. She probably does a better job than I do, but we do it a little bit differently. But this is extreme, to be this upset at his soup. I don't think he's digging the fact that the movie's just not on. Usually he just gets to watch the movie, and we haven't really tested him on that.
Love the A Word. Wonderful, wonderful ongoing documentary, and I encourage you to go and check out all of their episodes so that you really get to see that arc of what happens. I was just talking, and I'm going to introduce right now, we're with BCBA Angela Persicke, and we were just talking during the break about how really amazing it is at this point. I remember in our first year of ABA, so much happened, but we were so much in the experience of it that I really didn't notice how much my child had grown in that first year. And then you look back, and even now with this child, you know, he's not my child and I'm watching, and you see where he is at the end of the year, and then if you go back and watch the beginning, you go, oh my goodness, look at what a difference this child has made in a year.
It's amazing. And it's one of those things that a lot of times we focus on, okay, what next? What do we need to do next? And we don't look back and celebrate the little tiny steps and successes that got us there. And so it's really important, and I encourage people all the time to videotape. Videotape from before and after and during, and look back at those often and really see how much progress your child has made.
Yeah, it's this strange thing, completely understandable, that those of us with kids on the autism spectrum, we don't videotape our kids' tantrums. We just don't. Why would we? People always ask me, do you have videotape of when he was really little and some of the different, and mostly I don't, because when he was engaged in that kind of behavior, I was busy freaking out. If I had the camera going, it went down because I was moving stuff out of the way so that he couldn't hurt himself, and I wasn't emotionally a place where I was like, oh, let's videotape this for posterity. I hear from the funny thing about it is, though, is I hear from my friends whose children are neurotypical, and when their kids are having a tantrum, often they find it hilarious. And they'll get out the video camera and videotape it because it's hilarious to them. Because the fear isn't there. The fear of, you're never ever going to grow out of this, or I've done something horribly wrong that has caused this. None of that is there. But it is important, you know, when possible, to videotape your child as much as possible, because it will be helpful to you down the road, I guarantee you. And it's helpful to the entire community.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I've said one of the great benefits of the A Word is that no one is ever going to be able to say to that family or that little boy, oh, well, he probably didn't have it in the beginning.
Nope. No one ever.
And that has certainly been said about my child, and I try to be nice and polite, but those are fighting words to me. You know, oh, well, he was probably fine in the beginning, or he wasn't really affected.
It was
Step
just a
into
phase,
this is what I want to say to people.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, really? That must have been in my imagination how he worked for 40 hours a week. Okay. See, I get a little head.
It's okay.
My blood pressure.
Okay.
Woo! Yes, but so videotape. It will help you and it helps the community. And it will help your child to gain progress and for you to see the progress that's there. All right, so that's wonderful. We've discussed that, but I'm so thrilled that you're here, Angela, because we're going to talk a little bit about social skills, and in particular, we're going to talk about social language.
Yes, and conversational skills.
Conversational skills, and I can't wait to hear about this because we're still working on parts of this. And I say that not just with my child, we're working on that with me.
Everybody.
You know that I've said it before, I'll say it again, I have a hard time ending a conversation. And the first time I read in skills the lesson on ending a conversation, I went, now see, I don't know this. I don't know this stuff. So really important that I know it so that I can potentially teach it to my child. So, all right, where would you like to start?
Well, I would like to start at the very beginning, where we start with any child coming in who will eventually need to learn how to conversate with other people. And if a child has absolutely no idea about even communicating with other people, once you get to a point where the child has sentences and words and can describe his or her environment and ask for things, you can start to move into conversations. And a lot of the time we start with just personal information. You know, what is your name? How old are you? What do you like to do? Preferences, desires. What do you want? And then, you know, what do you like about it? So explaining. So building on those at first and just asking the child to answer these questions in a conversational way. That's really at the beginning of it.
And now I have to stop and ask, though, for children who are not yet vocal or I don't want to say nonverbal, but that doesn't apply here. I was, you know, the two, because we say nonverbal a lot in the community, and it was mind-bending to me to realize that that's not really the right term. That if you're making gestures and pointing to things, that counts as being verbal. And so some of our kids are verbal but not vocal. But so when you have, and there are some children who aren't verbal, though, they're not communicating. So are there ways that we can still be working on conversation without a child being vocal? And what accommodations do we make for a child who is truly nonverbal in terms of starting these things?
Definitely. As you've probably experienced, one of the first things that we will target is eye contact. Very important for conversation, very important for social interactions, even to understanding other people's emotions and feelings. Eye contact is huge. So just starting with eye contact so that the child is engaging with another person. And then we talk about joint attention. So two people experiencing an event at the same time, just by eye gaze or a point, and that starts it too. So that could be something that a child without any language can do. You know, make eye contact when there's something interesting in the environment, and look at the object or whatever it is, point to it, and then look back at the social partner. And that's something that doesn't necessarily require language, but it definitely is a huge part of future social language and conversation. We do this all the time. You know, oh, look at that, or we hear a noise and look over and the other person looks with us, and it's very important, but definitely following eye gaze and making eye contact.
Okay, because I just don't, you know, there are a lot of kids who are on the spectrum who communicate in a lot of different ways, you know, whether it's technology or they have a picture exchange system. And I want to make the point that conversation is possible for all of those kids. And we want to work towards that conversation and all those things that you were just talking about general information about what do you want and what is your name and, you know, where do you live and all those kinds of things. How old are you? We don't want to make it sound as if, and if you're watching and you have a child who's nonverbal or a child who's nonvocal, you're included in this conversation.
Of course,
okay,
of course.
Great. So we work on these things to begin with, and then where do we go from there?
Then we lead into you know, asking questions, and like that's a lot with personal information too, and then desires and preferences, but also teaching the child to ask questions. So when I make a statement, the child should ask if there's any ambiguous information. So, oh, I went somewhere. where did you go?
Right.
Who are you with? What did you do? These are really difficult for some kids to starting out, determining when to ask these questions, but with practice and multiple examples of this and prompting, of course, the kids learn this and pick it up pretty quickly.
Okay, so let me ask this. So we're really into, is this where we talk about the WH questions? Is this in the neighborhood of this? Because this is a fascinating area for a lot of parents, because we'll see, you know, sometimes, I don't know if everybody had heard this, but when my child was diagnosed, somebody said to me, I don't even remember who it was at this point, but they said, you really want to be working towards having questions by a certain age. And I remember saying, why? And they were saying, because, you know, if they get it by a certain age, you're much more likely to get to a certain level of, I don't know that that was based in anything, but I constantly was worried about, when are we going to get to the questions? When is he going to ask a question? How is he going to ask a question? How are we going to teach it so that he asks a question? And of course, you guys from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders came in and you were following this path.
Yep.
And you were, and I kept going, but where are the questions? Where are the questions? And you guys were following the path and saying, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting there. And then all of a sudden, one day, he asked the first question, and I very nearly wrecked the car.
And it's amazing once you see this every day and the practice that goes into it, and in this very contrived setting, and when it generalizes to a different environment, it's really amazing.
It was really, really amazing. And as I look back on it now, I remember feeling and writing in my journal about, are we going to get to this? When are we going to get to this? You know, and the frustration of it. And I look back now and I think, oh my goodness, it took almost no time in terms of the scope of things, but it felt like it took a long time.
And it's because, you know, we engage in conversation all the time, so we don't think about how many different skills are related to just us doing this right here. It requires so many skills and so many levels, and many people don't take that into consideration when they're like, oh, I just want my child to have a conversation with someone. Like, okay, well, we can do that, but it's going to take a little while to get to that point.
Yeah, so many important skills along the way, like knitting the sweater. And we don't want to drop a stitch anywhere. We want to keep it moving and making sure that they're picking up all the skills. Okay, why don't we take a little bit of a break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk some more about this and how we really build this skill. So stick with us, more with Angela Persicke after this.
My name is Michael McNemee, and I live on Staten Island. I love hearing myself on the radio. Every Thursday I'm on. It's energetic. It's fantastic. I love the radio show more than a kid loves chocolate cake. I got a lot of followers on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. This job makes me feel important. This job makes me feel like I have a purpose. Like, they believe that I'm capable of handling such big responsibilities, and I like that a lot. Why is it important for people with disability and special needs to be given the same experiences that a normal functioning person would? We're all capable and can do the same job. It's just the pace we do it in. Some of us need extra assistance. Even Bill Gates can't do some things on his own. He's a trillionaire. Just that little extra support goes a long way.
Visit autismspeaks.org.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our special guest right now is Angela Persicke. She is a BCBA, a board certified behavior analyst, and we're talking about teaching conversation, conversation skills, all social language. And, you know, so often people write in and say to us when we say, you know, what's the thing that you wish you could work on, or what skill would you like to build? And a lot of it is about talking, and a lot of it is about conversation, that people write in all the time and say, well, my child talks, but I want to have a conversation. And I get that as a parent. I understand how important that is to a parent. And I have it now. I have conversations with my son, and it's I don't know that I'm ever going to be not grateful for that. It still feels like it's a miraculous thing. I used to have to fill out those horrible forms on a monthly basis about what my child's skills were. We would come in for clinic, and I remember, though, that there was a point at which it would say, is your child able to put 2 words together? Is your child able to put 3 words together? And then eventually, I was at the part where I was just checking them all yes, and then I moved on to the next part of the conversation. Is your child able to converse back and forth, one question, one statement, or one question, one question? Is your child able to go back, back and forth more than twice, And finally got to the point where I couldn't put a number on how many times my son and I would go back and forth. And I don't think about it that way anymore, that we'll just, talk back and forth, and I don't count in my head, okay, that's 1, how many times is he volleying back? So I just put that out to all of you to let you know it's possible. It's possible. It's some time and some energy and some help, but it's absolutely possible, and something that's, boy, there's nothing else worth doing over this. This is worth doing.
And it's one of those things that will always matter.
It does. Always. It always matter, and it matters to everyone, but especially to the parents. So before the break, we were talking about the WH questions, and you making a statement and them coming back with a question, and how do we build from there into getting that volley back and forth with all of the different things that it takes to carry on a conversation?
Well, like we talked about, asking questions for both on the person who's talking and on the child too, asking back and forth, but also saying a statement and then replying with a statement is also very important. So we would go into, I would say, I'd like to eat pizza, and the child would have to say what they would like to eat. And so that's for just engaging, with friends. For a 4 or 5-year-old, this is something you'll see a lot with little kids. So just saying, I like this and I like this, and then it goes, the WH questions have to fit in there too. Oh, what about this? Do you like this? And from there, you start with just one exchange back and forth, like you talked about. One exchange, and then you move into 2 once one is mastered, and 3 and 4. And for a while, it might seem a little contrived still, like, oh, I'm asking a question, and then he's saying something, and then he's asking a question, I say something. And I'm sure it felt like that for you for a while, too.
And we were counting in our head, how many times do we get back and forth? But you know what also helped me? I mean, I listened to the therapist, but I used to do improv way back when, and I used to teach improv. And there were 2 games that they play in improv that lend themselves very well to doing these kinds of lessons for parents. And one of them was yes and. That if you said something, and it was a warm-up that you would do for improv. So you would sit there and say, I was walking down the street the other day and I met a frog. And then the next person in line had to say yes and they would have to add to it in some way. So you would tell this whole story, and we would practice this with Jem and tell stories, and my husband and I would do it. And then the other one is the game of questions, that I ask a question and then you have to ask a question, and I have to respond with a question, and we would go back and forth in terms of questions, and it made it fun for me. There's no reason why it can't be fun for us.
It's really important to make it fun for everyone.
And when I was having fun with it, then he would have fun with it, and my husband would have fun with it too. And it was a game. And those 2 games made it. We worked on those kinds of things a lot, which I think really helped us to understand what we were doing and follow up with what you guys were doing, because you guys had the most patience.
That is perfect, and making it fun. That's part of it, because a lot of times these children that we work with aren't really interested in talking to other people. And so if you're just going back and forth and saying, so my day was like this, and then this, and nothing interesting is coming up, why would you want to stay in that conversation? So a lot of times we will start with the child's interests. So base it around that and start with that, and then later on we can work on the type of questions that the child would ask someone else to find out about their interests. And this gets into maintaining conversation, going back and forth in the exchanges, and how long you can maintain a conversation without these breakdowns in conversation. That's what we call it. And And it takes a lot of time, and then you start to go from like 2, 4, 6 exchanges to conversation for 30 seconds, for a minute, for 2 minutes. And for many people, this seems like it's going to take forever, all these small steps. But if you're familiar with ABA at all, this is what we do. We break everything down into the smallest parts because that's where learning occurs.
Yeah, I mean, I literally think about if you were going to drive across country. It takes a long time, right? But you don't get there unless you start. Exactly. And you get down the path, and each place along the way that you get to, gets you that much closer. It's the same thing with ABA.
Exactly.
We just, and there's course corrections along the way if you're going across the country. Same thing with ABA. You make course corrections and say, no, this isn't getting us there, so we're going to go down this road. But you got to leave. You got to get in the car and you have to go.
You have to take that first step.
You have to start. But really, really important. And so from maintaining conversation and being able to do that, I'm going to guess what comes next along is repairing conversation.
Yes, exactly.
This is a big one for us right now.
This is huge. And we talk about this as repairing when there's, again, a breakdown in conversation.
Right.
So if something happens and the person can't hear you or doesn't understand what you're talking about, you didn't give enough information. So like, what does that mean? Who is this? I don't know this person. And this actually goes into conversational audience too.
Yes.
So looking at, talking about the people in your environment and what you talk to about different topics you talk to in conversation with different people. So, okay, this is my friend from school. If I'm going to have a conversation with this person, what topics should I bring up? Do I talk about the dinner I had with my family last night? Maybe. Maybe if that's important, you say, oh, this person from another circle of friends, which the person from school might not know about.
Right.
You don't necessarily bring that up unless you have to give all the describing information. And so that works all into repairing conversation because you'll have a conversation and the child will say, oh, then he went here. Who was he?
He and went where, and you don't have all the exposition that went before. And a lot of times what I'm noticing is with our son, we'll stop him and say, dude, I don't know what you're talking about, right? But kids his age, they won't. So repairing, we put it into his IEP this year that repairing conversation on the playground is one of his IEP goals.
Oh, good.
Because sometimes he doesn't realize what happened, that there was a breakdown because somebody doesn't tell him. So we need for him to start looking for those clues.
Yes, and that is a big part of repairing conversation, the non-vocal cues. So someone holding their head to the side.
Right.
Or
putting
furling their brow, or shrugging their shoulders,
or walking away.
Exactly. That's a huge one.
Because on the playground, that's what it comes down to. They just turn and walk away.
And so it's really important to not only focus on the vocal cues, saying what I don't understand, but the non-vocal cues as well, because those will happen a lot more with kids. And if your child continues to talk, the kid will either walk away or...
And we've been talking about this from the expressive side, but there's also the other side of it too, of having our child have those nonverbal cues so that they can let somebody else know when the conversation is broken down for them.
Exactly.
Which is really kind of amazing.
And that is quite difficult a lot of times. Yes. Because you need to get into, is the child attending to the conversation?
Right.
Is the child even picking up on transitions in conversation? And if there is someone that the child doesn't really know about, that has to be expressed.
Yeah, I can clearly remember the first time that I used a word and that my son said, "What does that mean?"
That's great.
And I, again, I was like, whoa! that's amazing moment. And teaching our children to be able to ask when they don't understand something so that they can repair the conversation on their own. Really important.
And again, this we work on this in very contrived situations,
Yes.
and so it's not something that you'll only address when your child's out on the playground. You know, you want to role play at home and engage in some of these behaviors, because a lot of time you will keep asking your child to clarify, or you'll fill in the blanks because you know your child so well, and he won't get the opportunity to repair conversation because you're like, oh, do you mean this?
Right.
Do you mean this? Okay, I think you're talking about this.
Right.
And so using these non-vocal and vocal cues and asking your child to clarify when it needs to happen, and this is something you'll need to practice every single day.
Yes. Yes, it's an ongoing, it's one of those skills that just grows and grows and grows, and you want it to, but you know, you do get further along the road. Like I said, you know, we've come quite a ways. I see where we hit this marker where the kids are different during this age group. What had been appropriate language-wise before, it's like all bets are off. And I've been talking to a lot of different people here about that, and how all of a sudden, you know, everybody's about being cool, which means ignoring people when they talk to you, because I'm too cool to say anything. Oh, I don't want to teach my child those things, but I want to teach him what to do when those things happen in a conversation.
Exactly. And this will also lead into ending conversations as well.
The thing I can't do.
Exactly. And there are mostly non-vocal cues that are involved in ending a conversation. Someone looking at their watch, or looking away, you know, a sign that they're bored or maybe need to go. So these are really difficult, obviously.
It's fascinating to me. I read through the lesson on ending conversation, and I thought, okay, I really don't know these things. And I will tell you that starting to do this show has changed it for me as well, because there were times when mostly for me, it's that I will start to do things that I think physically are letting the other person know that I need to leave, right? The conversation needs to end, and they don't read it. I'm too subtle with it or something, it doesn't work. And then starting to do the show, a lot of times somebody will duck their head into the studio to say something to me during a break, and in my ear, I have Emily telling me, counting down the time, how much we have, and I say, okay, you gotta close the door, you gotta go now, we're done now, and somebody's still talking to me. I've had to get much more overt about what my body does and what I say, to say to people, conversation is ending right now. It's actually been helpful to me, because there's a sense of urgency. There has to be some fluency there, because the show goes on, you know, whether I'm ready or not. So it's very interesting to me.
It is very interesting, and this takes a lot of perspective taking too, because
yes, it does.
Like, okay, does this person know that I have to go? Does this person know I'm busy? How do I make them understand that I'm busy while still being polite?
Yes. Yes, not being rude and saying leave. After they've been so nice to be here and talk to me, you know. But you know, I got to be here. It's one of the, and so you know, the circumstances made me have to do it, because I don't think anything else would have been reinforcing enough. So you know, but working on it. But we can work on these things with our children too, to be able to pick up on the cues and to give the cues when it's time to go, and to be able to say, I have to go now. I see how important that is on the phone now. That, you know, we have lessons about phone skills, but the whole thing of ending the conversation on the phone skills without all of the nonverbal cues there, that's a whole other thing to teach.
Exactly, and that's within skills, that's a whole different lesson.
Yes, phone skills.
Exactly.
So if it starts to sound overwhelming, and because there's even more, there's initiating the conversation, and how kids do that, and I see that at the age of 9, that is vastly different than it was at the age of 7. Who knew? I was not prepared for this. Very, very different.
And as I mentioned, the topic of perspective taking, this as a child gets older and you see the child start to engage with other people, it's going to change. It's perspective taking is the biggest part of all social skills in general, but conversational skills.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about, a conversational audience and who to talk to in what way, and then it works into repairing conversation. When does this person know this? How do I know that they know this? Do I need to say something to see what I need to talk about? So the whole perspective taking, all the lessons that we have for perspective taking are so important when it comes to conversational skills.
Absolutely.
Because again, having a conversation, you may just think of, oh, it's just talking back and forth, but it requires so many more skills and what we call cognitive skills, and that's just really perspective taking. And if those are not present, it's very obvious. So a child may be exchanging back and forth, but if the child is not using his perspective taking skills, then he's going to continue talking about something he wants to talk to, not be able to end the conversation appropriately, not be able to transition, or when someone else tries to transition, will go back to the topic he wants to talk about. And all of these areas are so important for your child's social skills.
Absolutely. And there's so many different ways in which you can teach these things, and there are fabulous lessons and skills to help you systematically go through and teach them. But one of the things that's in there when we're talking about thinking, teaching about thinking, which would be a precursor to some of this, and I was looking through this the other day, was the whole idea of making conversational bubbles to go over people's heads about what they're thinking. And I was thinking about those kinds of videos that they do from time to time where two teenagers are standing talking to each other, and somebody says, hey, and the other person says, hey, but they do the bubbles over their head for all the things that they're really thinking, and then you watch their body language, and as it displays in the bubbles the kinds of things that they're thinking. Which, when our kids are at a certain age, showing them something like that to illustrate this is what's being said, but this is what they're thinking, is fascinating to some of them because it's very visual. It's a visual way of looking at thinking. And then the other thing I think about is that some of our viewers, I think, are aware of something called Superflex, which I don't know if you know about. It's about social thinking, and it's a grade school way of looking at things, and they characterize. They make different characters, like Glass Man. Glass Man gets upset no matter what you say to them. And then there's Topic Twister, the person that you bring something up and they always bring it back to the other thing. And it's a really fun way for kids to be able to look at that kind of stuff and identify it.
Yeah, that's great because it makes it visual, and especially when it comes to thinking and knowing the difference between what someone thinks or feels and what the person actually says.
Exactly.
And this gets into why the person said it as well. So there's a great example of a little boy and a little girl where the boy sees a spider and he goes, oh, cool, a spider. But his thought bubble says, I'm so scared I want to run.
Right, absolutely. And that what people say isn't necessarily what they're feeling. It's good poker. Looking for the tell. They're saying one thing but doing another, and what does it mean? It's also the basis of all comedy.
Yep, exactly.
It is. Absolutely fascinating. There's so much more that we could talk about in terms of conversation, but I know we got to let you go. Anything else in terms of parting all these different things? The thing I keep coming back to is, but if you start where your child is and add one little skill at a time, it feeds and feeds and feeds on itself.
And I just want to remind everybody that although it seems very complicated, and as we even talked about it now, we probably made it seem even more complicated, but the great thing about behavior analysis and what we do with these kids is that we can teach it. And we do it systematically and in a way so they actually learn, and that they will generalize to other situations. So
absolutely, I've seen
be hopeful.
Happen. Yes, be hopeful. I've seen it happen. Thank you so much for being with us, and we're going to see you. It's going to be like 3 weeks now before we see you. It'll be after Thanksgiving the next time we have you with us. But thank you so much for being with us.
No problem.
We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and look at your answers to the question of the day. So stick with us.
Skills is a revolutionary web-based program that incorporates comprehensive assessment, curriculum design, progress tracking, and treatment evaluation for children with autism all in one place. Developed by the Center for Autism-Related Disorders. Our approach is based on over 40 years of research on the principles of learning and their application to improving the lives of children with autism. How does Skills work? Created with speed and simplicity in mind, Skills was modeled on an easy 3-step process. Step 1. Start assessment. Step 1 begins with our intelligent assessment system, which consists of a series of questions. This assessment is essential to identifying your child's level of skills compared to their typical peers across all areas of development. This includes assessing social, motor, language, adaptive, play, cognition, executive functions, and academic skills. Every skill has an assigned age which indicates when the skill emerges during typical development. This means that each child is automatically presented only with lessons that are relevant to his or her age. Step 2. Choosing activities. It's now easier than ever to build an individualized treatment plan. In Step 2, you are presented with an individualized pool of activities that are directly linked to your student's assessment results. Each activity represents a specific skill that has been indicated by the assessment as needing to be taught. Activities are categorized by curriculum and then by lesson. There are 3 main types of skills: building blocks, fundamental, and expansion skills. Fundamental skills are necessary for successful everyday functioning. Building blocks are prerequisites to a fundamental skill. Expansion skills are non-essential skills, but may provide further enrichment in certain areas. After reviewing the activities available to you, you can quickly add your chosen activities to the treatment plan by simply checking the box and clicking the button. Step 3. Start treatment. Once you have selected and added the activities you want, you are ready to begin teaching. Skills provides you with all the tools necessary to design and manage an effective curriculum plan, such as printable activity guides that are customizable by the teacher, supplemental teaching aids including printable data sheets, teaching guides, visual aids, worksheets, and tracking forms, detailed IEP goals and benchmarks for each activity, brief and visually appealing video tutorials, a variety of treatment progress and clinical timeline charts, and lots more. And since Skills is completely web-based, everything you need is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in one easy-to-access location. Skills users even benefit from unlimited access to a support community, where they can ask questions and share ideas with a skills expert. Skills is always with you.
Welcome back. Our question of the day today was, who does your child enjoy interacting with? And I find it significant that a lot of you guys wrote back and said that it's not a person, it's a thing. And I think that that's not atypical, right? That's our reality a lot of times. But as we talked about earlier, I think it really is important as much as possible to find a way to make someone in the person's life reinforcing enough. And that means a lot of times pairing it with something else. So, you know, I want to talk about the things that you guys wrote in, but I want to keep that in mind, that it's never too late, and that I think that there are good reasons for making it reinforcing to be with people. Not always. We talked about that. When somebody is old enough that they can make the choice if they don't want to be, there are a lot of people that are not on the spectrum who do not enjoy being around other people. I don't think there's anything wrong with that if it's a choice. But some of the different things that you said that your kids enjoyed interacting with, somebody said movies. A lot of people said mom and grandma. I think those are the top responses. Somebody wrote in and said, he's 20 now. He's never enjoyed the company of anyone on a regular basis, only things, TV, DVDs, and trains. Somebody else says Lego. Boy, I hear that. But my son, really, the thing he enjoys the most is playing with Legos with someone else. Again, mommy and grandma, mommy and big sister. Somebody who is 16, video games, cartoons, and Legos. Nana most of the time, and she's 19 years old. Mommy most of the time. But thanks to God, he is interacting with his siblings and daddy. We love our son. Somebody else says, anybody that will play chase with him. Boy, that was, my son still likes to play that, but he loved that as a child. He didn't have a way of communicating with other children. He really didn't. They didn't understand him. He didn't understand them, but he would run away from them. And every once in a while, another child would go, oh, you want me to chase you? And he would chase him. Or my son would run at a child, hoping that they would run away from him so that they could play chase. It was painful to watch when he would attempt to do this with somebody and they wouldn't get it. But when they would get it, he was just the happiest little boy to run away from someone or run towards them to try to catch them. Loved that. Somebody else says his aunt Mary Beth, and lately he's very into his little sister. He's 3 and she's 2. That's wonderful. Daddy, somebody says, love that. He's a mama's boy, but he loves everyone. Somebody wrote in, and I'm on the Center for Autism and Related Disorders page. Somebody wrote in on the spectrum, and they wrote a really lengthy, really wonderful account of what it was like for them. I don't have time to read you the whole thing, but I encourage you to go and look at it because they talk about what it was like for them as a child on the spectrum, playing with friends and how it wasn't reinforcing. And I think it's a really interesting thing to read about what that's like. And I wish I had time to read the whole thing. We don't. Another person said, my 3-year-old loves his 13-year-old big brother. That's a great thing. Somebody else says his little brother. Someone else says me, but no choice, only child, and we only have each other. And thank goodness you have each other. And there's a happy face there. Somebody else said my triplets, his siblings. Someone else went at home. He loves to play with mommy and do everything with me. A lot of mommies in here. Someone else who says I like being with my mom, and at the end of the day, she makes me smile when she and I are home together. Love that. Someone else says he's 4, and so his sister, they are getting along wonderfully. She seems to know what he wants all the time, some kind of twin connection. You know, it is amazing sometimes the connection that our kids will find with one person, and I would encourage you as a parent, if you have not found that one person yet, not to give up. I was mentioning while we were talking about this earlier, Angela Persicke and I, that we had one person who would come to our home once a month to videotape. And my son is not good with names. He just isn't. He still struggles with names. He takes it after his mother in this way. And yet there was one person that would come to the door, and he would get so excited when this person would come to the door, and he would say his version of his name. His name was Art, but my son would say, Heart, Heart, and he would jump up and down. He was a pudgy little boy, but he would jump up and down and say, Heart, Heart, and always remembered his name. And it was just fascinating to me that he just was thrilled when he was at the door. And he would come once a month, and he was there to videotape. And you know, I remember thinking, okay, what is it about Art that he just remembers his name? And we all thought it was sweet that he called him Heart too. And you know, I remember a period of time when I thought, well, maybe it's the video camera. He's really into the video camera, and Art videotapes him. And Art is the sweetest person alive, you know, so there's lots of reasons there that it might be. But there were other sweet people that were coming to the house too, you know. You just don't, you look and go, okay, so what is it about this sweet person? And I thought, well, maybe it's the camera, because he comes with the camera. And then we had an opportunity to be someplace that Art was at where he didn't have the camera, and my child was still all thrilled and excited and Heart. So I think just there are some people our kids connect with, and if you haven't found that person, can, do yourself a favor and your child a favor and don't give up, because there are people there who, I'm just looking to see on this other side. Okay. There are people who your child will have some kind of a I don't know, a connection with. Okay, somebody, right, depends on her mood. Usually it's me, her mom, but sometimes it's daddy or her grandpa. She didn't like to share him when she was younger with her cousins. That's very sweet. Another person, another mom, says it's me, and that the feeling is mutual. Gotta love that. And here, somebody else says musicians, that your child connects with musicians. Isn't that fascinating? And I hope you're building on that and pursuing that for your child. Just absolutely fascinating. There are some things that our kids are drawn to, and you know, as parents, you know, sometimes there are things we can do and sometimes there are things we can't do, but if we can find an area of interest and open it up to them, that it's worthwhile. You know, you don't have to go to crazy extremes. Of course, I think about a mom who wrote the book, A Real Boy, and her son was so interested in airplanes, and so she went to a small municipal airport and said, I need to bring my child in to look at airplanes, and can I do that? And I don't know that everybody has the ability to do that, but whatever interests them, that we find the way to, it's just another way in, just another way in. We're getting here towards the end of the show, and Emily's going to start to show some of the different ways that you guys can interact with us. And we're going to be taking a bit of a pause here because, as I mentioned at the top of the show, that I am going to be leaving after this show. I need to go be with my mom because she's not feeling well. And you know, sometimes you have to be there, right? And we know we're autism parents. We had to show up for our kids. I need to show up for my mom. So, and I'm taking my child. I'm spending today figuring out in terms of getting the things together so that while we go on planes and he's got things to do, because you never know how long you're going to have to sit on a tarmac. I hope I don't come back with a story. And also making arrangements because he's on a special diet and calling ahead and making sure what can I get and what places, and because my mother no longer lives in a place that I've ever lived, and so it's very unfamiliar to me. But you know, I'm going, but I want you to know that while I'm gone, that this conversation continues, and I'll try to check in on Facebook while I'm there to hear what you guys are saying and give you updates about how things are going. But again, there are other people who will still be here, and we will still be doing Ask Dr. Doreen on Wednesday. That just started this last week, and there will be an episode this week. So you want to tune in for that next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time and at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And I hope that you will continue to be sending in your questions for those episodes. It's such a wonderful opportunity to hear someone of her level of expertise. And honestly, I don't know that there's anybody else at her level of expertise. It's really an amazing opportunity for all of us to take advantage of. And so I hope not only will you watch it and ask questions, but that you will tell people in your community. You know, we're here to be a resource for you guys, and I'm 100% clear that that's where I'm supposed to be, but I want you to know that there isn't a whole lot of money, there really isn't any money between you and I spent to let other people know. It really is word of mouth. So if you feel like you're getting something here that's of use to you, I'll ask you to please share it with someone else in your community, in your local support group, in your global support group, to let them know that they can come here, pose questions, and hear information, and that it's all for free. Because we want to be a good resource and really to be a voice letting you know that you're doing a good job. This isn't an easy job, man. You know, I gotta tell you, you know, I'm at a place right now where parenting is one of the easiest parts of my day. And if somebody could have told me that at the beginning, that we could get where we are now, I don't know what I would have done. It's what I most wanted to believe. But, you know, if somebody could have said, yep, you know, this is how much progress you're going to have, I don't know that I would have believed it. But I want you to know that that much progress and more, because let's remember, my child is not recovered, and there are children who are recovered. My son is recovering, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so I hope that you'll ask the questions that you want, that you'll reach out to get the help that you so desperately need, and I hope that you'll take the hope and the message that you're doing a good job. And as I say from time to time, si se puede, we can do this together. We hold hands and do this. I'm gonna miss you while I'm gone, but again, you know, you can contact me via Facebook and be posting on our Facebook page, and I'll try to check in from time to time to see how things are going. And as far as I know, we will be back, other than Ask Dr. Doreen, we'll be back live on the morning of the 19th of November, Thanksgiving week. Keep your prayers for me and for my family, and I'll keep my prayers for you. And I'll see you on the 19th of November. Until then, please give your kiddos a nice big hug from me, and one for you too. Take care. Bye-bye for now.